Hey everybody, welcome back. This is my tutorial series on Cirklon Aux Events. Cirklon is the powerful MIDI sequencer you see here, sequencing the Digitone II. I've tried to film this a few times at this point, losing my mind a little bit. My phone keeps on cutting out as the primary camera. It's connected by cable now, so hopefully that doesn't happen again. But if I seem frustrated, it's because I am. Let's try to clear the space, clear out the spirits with some weirdo MIDI sequencing. Okay, getting into it, the first event that we're going to look at, we'll actually look at the first two together, and that's mute track N and unmute track N. Pretty self-explanatory, but the way that they work is you can either mute the track that you're currently on, so like the self track, or you can mute a target track. And I'm already doing that on this percussive element that you hear on track 1 here. You can hopefully see that it's occasionally muting and unmuting itself. It's actually muting itself, and then we have a target track that's unmuting it. We'll dig into that on these synth tracks. So these are two separate events. Sometimes I think it would be nice if it was a single toggle event, but obviously you have more granular control with both. So let's set up. Again, I've recorded this a few times, so I'm going to clear out some tracks that I've already done this on. We'll use tracks 11 and 12. Actually, don't think I've touched those. We'll use those to mute and unmute 9 and 10 in some interesting ways. So we'll create a new P3 pattern on track 11. We don't need to set an instrument. And I'm going to change Aux C to mute track N. And Aux D to unmute. And these can be different tracks on a per step basis. The value here equates to the track that you want to impact. But we're just going to do track 9 on these. We're just going to apply it to all steps. We'll only use one step for each probably, but... And I find that it's really helpful to have these tracks muted, these like aux tracks that or like aux impacting tracks that we're using, because still to my knowledge, I don't think there's a way to like change values without turning on the step. I'm sure that's not true, but I haven't really dug into it or tried to figure it out. But yeah, sometimes you can get results that you're not excited by when you're like scrolling through values, so I just mute the track entirely so it doesn't do anything. I'm just gonna mute track 9 now. And I do that by adding I toggle on Aux C, which is the mute event, on step 1. So as soon as I unmute track 11, it'll actually mute 9. Great. Now I'm going to unmute it on step 9. So you can hear, for the first half of this pattern, it's muted. For the second half, it's unmuted. So this is already pretty cool. You can... I don't know, sometimes you're doing like random gating and things like that, like mask gating, gate masking. There we go. With Aux Events, but I actually am finding some really cool applications for using other patterns to do this, other tracks. And where it gets interesting is, let's speed it up to 32 time bass. So you can already hear that you're getting some sort of surprise results. Maybe not surprising to you, but some like nice musical muting and unmuting. I'm just gonna do the same thing on track 12, but apply it to track 10. I think I'll just copy. It's definitely a solid. It's definitely a way to copy patterns. I don't know how to do it. Okay, yeah, I copied where the steps are, but not the aux events. I'm sure there's a way to do it, but I'll just recreate it. Okay, and you can already hear that I'm now muting track 10 with track 12. So I'm doing a similar thing here. I just have a T base of 16. So it's going at a speed of, I don't know, 16 steps per, or 16 notes, I believe. Well, let's slow it down to 4, so that way we have these longer phrases. And then it pauses. That's cool. Okay, I like the result on track 10, but I want to make it a bit weirder on the arpeggio that we're muting and unmuting. And one easy way to do that is by applying triplets, so switching into a triplets time base. And then you could even modify the last step so that it restarts at weird times. Sometimes musical, sometimes not. We can see how this is really powerful. Cool. Hopefully you understand that. I'm doing it slightly differently on the percussion track. I won't recreate it, but on the percussion track itself, I actually have the mute event taking place, so it's applying to itself, track 1, and I have that happening on the first step. And then on track 2, I have this unmute event, which is randomly masked. So it's got about a 50% chance of unmuting. But if I were to turn off track 2, it would never send that unmute event, so it'll just remain unmuted. And I'd have to manually toggle it until it restarts the cycle, and then it mutes itself again. So when I re-enable track 2, it'll randomly have about a 50% chance of sending that unmute event. Great. So we have a nice little generative pattern going on. Some generative muting and unmuting. And next up we have the set tempo event. Doesn't look like we've used pattern 7. This is pretty self-explanatory. You can change the tempo on a per step basis. I can hear my dog grooming himself getting into the microphone, which I don't find particularly pleasing. Okay, this one is really good to unmute or to mute. The track that you're going to impact the tempo with, I would mute prior to changing any values. And so we already have a tempo of 105, so I'm just gonna set all the values to that. But then I'm gonna change step 1 and 9. Let's say to like 170 or something. Actually, I'm going to change step 1 to 175 and step 9 to 75. And then step 5 and 13 are enabled to reset to 105. So when I unmute this, tempo is going to go crazy. And that's really cool with the Doppler effect from the delay. Because the delay is tempo synced to the Digitone. The Digitone's tempo synced to the Cirklon, so the delay is impacted. This is actually the coolest version of this that I've done, so happy we're filming this for the 5th time. What I think is really cool about this is that you can get into sort of some workflows you'd only really think of in the Eurorack space. Sorry, I'm kind of transfixed by this. For example, like the make noise Rene sequencer can be sequenced by a gate that's rapidly changing, an external gate, so you could be sending like a maths sloped envelope, slope of any type, untempo synced, and that's outputting gates that are just like rapidly speeding up or slowing down, and so that's changing the speed in which the Rene is spitting out gates and CV to your oscillator or whatever. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about, and if you don't, you don't. I do wonder the overlap of people that do not have modular. This is getting distracting. People that don't have modular but also have a Cirklon is probably a small percentage at this point. But yeah, I honestly, that's the first time I've gone. I don't know if I'd call that musical, but I don't know. And so interesting, I would think that stop would reset the tempo, but I guess because it's a global control, it's maintaining it. So let's just get that back up to 105. And let's look at the last event. One other thing, like you could do some cool stuff by like sloping the tempo so that it speeds up over a pattern. You can obviously randomize the tempo. We're not going to get into that here, but run wild. The last one I use a lot, I'm actually using it already, is the set scene transposition. And the way that works is it's actually turned off. So you can hear that there's no transposition taking place anymore. There was kind of like a chord progression before. And on the scene page, we have this transposition that we could do. And then we have the force to scale parameter that we can turn off or on. We'll experiment once we actually start messing it with it as an aux event. I'll leave it off for now. Okay, let's pick a new track. I'm gonna make the muting and unmuting of the arpeggio a bit more regular so we can tell what's going on. What I'm going to do is on the first step, I'm always going to reset it to have a transposition of 0. So it'll just go back to the default notes that I inputted it as. And then on step 9, we're going to transpose it 6 semitones above. So all of the notes will move 6 semitones above, except for the percussion track, which I'll get into in a second. Slow the time bass down a little bit. So it's just a full key change. You're just offsetting everything by 6 semitones. But where this gets interesting, or more musical, depending on the type of music you're making, obviously, is when we do force to scale to on. So, immediately more melodic, immediately sticking to the C major scale. What we've done in a really nice way, totally accidentally here, is like remove elements to breathe new life into this sequence, into this collection of patterns, I guess. Creating like a more interesting ambient soundscape. And then of course you could change like the pattern length. And each step can be a different value, remember, so you can get really weird with it. I mean, theoretically, let's just like... Strange. Okay, the last thing we'll discuss here. I think we're doing okay so far. Some dog sounds, some lip smacking from me, but 5th time's the charm. I don't think my camera's cut out. Hopefully the construction next door that is burrowing into every thought that I could possibly have during the workday is not making it into the stream. Okay, yeah, the last thing I want to look at is just this percussion track. You can hear it's not being transposed. Let me just manually turn down the synths. I'm gonna do it on the Digitone because I'm doing all my funky unmuting and muting here. I think there's like a mixer mode in Cirklon that you can change volume with, but... Okay, so again, we have transposition on. But there's this shift, when you hit shift fill, you get into whatever X mode is. I think it's just no transposition mode. I'm surprised that it has its own button. You can see that all the steps here have this applied to it. So if I turn it off, it'll now transpose this percussion sound too. Of course, it muted. So you can hear it's actually shifting in pitch, and that's okay because this is kind of a tuned percussion sound. But I just wanted to figure out, which I did on the first stream yesterday, how to disable transposition on percussion. So with this on, this X value is no transposition. There's also the concept, you can apply this on an instrument basis, but because the Digitone is a multi-timbral synth and I only have one instrument definition set up for it, like the no transpose value, let's actually pull it up. Like you can see in the Digitone definition, I can say no transpose, but then it will apply to my synths and the percussion alike, and I don't want that. Theoretically, I could set up like 2 Digitone definitions, but I think the per step no transpose is just fine. And that's it for global control. Yeah, hopefully no surprise technical issues in this recording. And if that's the case, and you're watching this now, we'll see you in the next Accumulator Aux Events series, which I'm super excited about. The final piece of the enigma of the Cirklon. Thanks for watching.